Hello everyone, let's continue with the videos, and today let's talk about the save system in ORK Framework and Machinum. So if you remember, in previous videos we were using a custom script to call some schematics using the input from the keyboard to avoid having to create control maps and inputs in the ORK Framework editor or Machinum editor. So let's check it out. Let's make some room and let's go to the prefabs, characters, hero and player. So what we did in order to equip and unequip the helmet, we made, let's see if I can find them, yeah, this schematic color. So this is just a handy way to avoid having to add input keys just for debugging purposes. We are going to do the same to save the current state of the game and then load the game, just to showcase that we are keeping the equipped item for the character, as well as later on we can showcase that we are actually saving the current locomotion state from the weapon that we have equipped. Okay, so let's start by that. Okay, so let's go to the schematics to see what we have available for us. So if we were to start typing save, we have save game exists, save game menu, auto load, auto save. Actually, let's go from the hierarchy. Game, save game category, and this is what we have available for us. So there is actually no node to save the game, but to save the auto save slot. So we could use this one, auto save. Let's just link it up, and we don't want to show any message because we don't have any UI set up yet. And let's save this schematic and double click our project, Schematics, and let's make a new folder here, maybe save system, and let's call this one auto save schematic. There we go. And we can do the same similarly for the auto load. So let's delete this node, do not save it yet. Let's type save and auto load. And let's save, in this case save schematic as, to not override this, the one we already saved. So let's type auto load schematic. There we go. So we should have in our schematics folder the save system, and now we only have one for some reason, so let's do it again. Remove the node, save, autosave, save schematic as, autosave schematic. Okay, now it's there. The save system is configured in the UI section, and then we should see in the save game settings, what we have to configure here. By default, we have up to 3 slots to save. We have 1 autosave slot. This is the one that we are configuring via Schematic. And what we want to do when we save, we load the game. So in this case, we are going to load the level. We have the option to select load asynchronously, additive, and so on and so forth. So many options here for you to choose. The important thing here is where to save this file. By default is the persistent data path. We could choose a custom path, the player pref, which I never recommend, and the data path. So the data path is the path where the executable of the game is. The persistent data path is a hidden folder inside our file system that I will show you. So let's keep the default standard one. And of course you can decide whether to encrypt the data, which I also recommend, but not during development. Okay. Down below we have options to select what we want to save. So by default we have almost everything already checked for us. And in this case I will not change anything. I will leave everything by default. So we can see, for example, in the ORK save settings we have to save statistics, groups, faction, log, quests, bestiary, and so on and so forth. Down below you can select whether to change the file name. So again I will leave everything as default. I will not change anything just yet. So let's click on save settings just in case there is something that has changed since we click it on the save game settings. So now we can close the ORK editor and let's continue. Okay, so now that we have our schematic here, we can go to the prefab and open the prefab to edit. And scroll down and we can add a couple of more of these components that we created before. So let me just collapse all this stuff. To have better visibility. Alrighty, so let's ping the script and add a couple of them. And we can assign the schematic that we did before, we created before. Save system, autosave, and let's choose the, I don't know, the P button, let's say. P key to save, and the L key to load. And let's call the auto load schematic. Let's save the prefab, exit the prefab mode, and now let's give it a test. Since we are saving before that in the persistent data folder, we need to make sure, or at least you need to make sure, that in the player settings the persistent data path will contain your company name. So because I don't want this save to override my previous other projects that I have with the same name, what I can do either is to change the product name. So let's say here Dark ARPG project YouTube, or change the company name. Okay, so let's do that. Let's hit play. All right. So now we are starting at this position. So let's test the saving system first. Let's move away and hit the P button. So at this point we save our game. Let's exit the game and let's search for this file. Okay, so to find the file, the save file, we need to go into the file system, the C drive, then the users folder, your username that you are logged in your machine, and then you need to fetch or search in the app data folder. This is a hidden folder, so you might need to click to show hidden folders. So this is the path I have. As I mentioned before, C drive, users, the username, app data folder, and then inside the app data folder, as I mentioned, this is a hidden folder. You need to click the show hidden folders or hidden items, and then inside the app data you navigate to the local law, then the company name that you have in your Unity project, and finally the project name. You remember I changed to Dark ARPG project YouTube or YT. And here we have the autosave file from ORK or Machinum. And then if we were to open this file, I have it already open, it's just a XML like of a structure, and it contains the information about our game. Okay, so that's the reason why it is recommended nearby releasing the game to encrypt this information, because at some point it can be hacked, similarly as having in the player prefabs. The prefabs, not preference, save preference, yes, registry. Okay. So now that we have our autosave, let's test the load game. So if I click play again, this is our starting point, and we save the game in a different location. So let's now type or click the L key in the keyboard, and now we are loading the game in a different position from our save. So let's do one thing now, and just to showcase the equipment and the issue that we are going to encounter. Mainly because if you remember, we are using a modular character, and ORK Framework does not support having the parts in the skin mesh. So let's equip our helmet. Let's go to a different position. Let's click again the save button with the P key. Let's go to a different position and click the L to load the game, and now we load the game and the helmet is gone. So in order to work around this issue, because we are not using the equipment viewer for this part of the character, we need actually to handle that with a custom script. So let's do that now. Before starting our script or writing the code, let's review quickly what we have done in regard of the equipment. So let's say, for example, let's click on our equip helmet A schematic. So here what we are doing is just locating the helmet that we want to make visible by just changing the active state of the game object itself, and of course hiding all the meshes that we want to be hidden when we have the helmet active. So let's go quickly to the prefab once again. Prefab 0. Let's drag a copy here in the scene. So if we check the structure of the model itself, it has many parts, and this is what we are doing. We want to show the helmet A, then we hid the beard, for example, the hair, and so on and so forth. So this is what we're doing. And because we are not using equipment viewers from the ORK framework, because it will not work like that, we need to handle this using this approach. Of course, if you think that I am overthinking and there is a better way, please share it with me. Okay, so let's start scripting this logic. So let's go to our scripts folder, behaviors, character, and let's create here a new script. And let's call it equipment viewer handler. Give it the name you like. Maybe this is not the right one, but makes sense since we need to hide or unhide the equipments from the ORK system at the end. So let's open up the script and let's add a serialized field to store our character component. When the game starts, we want to register to an event from Machinum, which is called game loaded. So let's do that in the start method. Game is love, Machinum, Mackie, save game, game loaded. Click the plus equal sign and then you can press the tab to insert the proposed method name. There we go. So let's remove the throw not implemented exception, and for the time being what we can do here is just to do a debug log. Game loaded, like so. And of course we need to unregister for this event when the game object is destroyed. So let's add it over here on destroy. Let's copy this line here and unregister. The event. So at the moment we don't care about saving or registering to the save game. We only care about, in this case, when we load the game back, to make sure that we then loop through the supposedly equipped items and then assign or make this helmet visible again. Okay. For that, let's create a new function here. So it will be a private void, and let's call it check equipment visibility. And what we are going to do here, if we go to the ORK editor once again, let it compile the script, and what we are going to do is from the editor in the inventory sections we have the equipment slot. So currently we have 6 equipment slots. So we are going to loop through all these slots and check afterwards if the equipment assigned to this slot is visible or not in our combatant. As simple as that. Of course, it's a little bit cumbersome, the scripting we need to do to reach these points, but let's do it. Okay, so let's close the editor and let's go back to our script. So here down below, let's loop for the equipment slots as I mentioned. So for int I equals 0, I less than gaming is love. ORK framework in this case, then the ORK static class, equipment slots, count. So we retrieve the count of the equipment slot as we saw before, and then we increment our index. Then we need to check what equipment slot this our combatant or character has available, right? Just to make sure it's a valid one. So let's do a character combatant equipment, and we pass the index and with square brackets, and we check if it's available. If it's available, then we can continue. And what we are going to do is to retrieve this equipment and check if it's actually equipped, or I mean this slot is equipped. So if character combatant equipment equipped, so this will return true or false depending if this equipment slot is equipped. And also I want to check if in the settings for this equipment, or the in the if in this slot the equipment that is equipped in this slot has actually an schematic. Because remember, we were using our equip and unequip schematics. So for example, if we are looping through these slots and we encounter, for example, the weapon, we know it in advance. This is something that we are going to do on the next videos. The weapon itself is not using this logic about the part of the modular character. So the weapon itself is another mesh, and that mesh will actually use the equipment viewer from ORK Framework. So what I want to do here is just to make sure that the equipment that we are querying here has schematics set to them. So let's do a character if I can type command character combatant equipment, we pass the index once again, then we query the equipment itself, and you can see it's going to return an equipment shortcut. Then we call the settings for this equipment shortcut, and it will return an equipment class. And from this equipment class we can check whether the equip schematic is not null. So if here I forgot to add the and. So let's go back again to the ORK editor and see what we are doing here. So we are checking, we are looping through all these slots. So let's say that we arrive to the weapon, and if we then go to the equipment section, and in the equipment settings, no, this is not the right one. What are the, there we go. So in the schematic settings, we have the equip and unequip schematics. So we are checking whether we have this or this slot is not null, because if we check the weapon later on, we don't need to handle this logic, at least for the moment. Okay, so let's go back to the script, and at this point we could add another debug log. So let's say checking equipment and from the character combat and equipment ID we get the actual equipment, and we call the get name like so. So in this case we know that there is a schematic assigned to this equipment. So what we can do now is to make sure that the equipment itself, now not the slot, but the equipment itself has an asset assigned to it. So if character combatant equipment, we pass the index once again, equipment settings, schematics, equip, my gosh, equip schematic asset, and you can see that we have equip schematic asset and unequip equip schematic asset, and we check has asset. So we make sure that this equip schematic asset slot has an actual asset assigned to it. Then we are good to continue. And what we're going to do here is just to trigger our existing equip schematic asset. So let's do a gaming is love, Machinum, schematics, schematic play, and these are all the parameters we need to pass. We have 5 options here. So let's do first of all we need to assign the actual schematic asset. So we could at this point go to character, combatant, equipment, equipment, then we go through the settings, we fetch the equipment schematics settings. Once again we query the equip schematic asset, and we return the store asset from this slot. The next parameter we can pass who is the source. Of course we are, so we pass this. We can pass null as the next parameter, The next parameter will be what is the machine object. So we could pass character combatant, and finally we can pass null, and we close the statement like that. So this is all we need actually to make sure that we get the equipment, the helmet, visible when we load the game. We need, of course, to make this function execute. So we can just copy the method or the function and put it on the start method. Like so. And let's go back to Unity. Let it compile the script. Let's close Mechanism Editor. And let's select our prefab. Open the prefab in the prefab editor, and let's assign our script equipment viewer handle like here, and it's asking us for the character reference, so let's just drag the character script inside the inspector slot here. Okay, we have autosave prefab. Regardless, let's do a control save and let's go back. Now I will hide this object from the hierarchy here, and let's give it a try. Okay, so before running our test, I want to fix something that I did wrongly last time, and it is about where we set the schematics. So if we scroll down, we can see that we added the schematics in the level settings. So basically, if we have more levels, we can change which schematic to play by level. So this is not the right place to do this. So let me just click on this equip schematic slot, so it will be pinged in the asset or the asset project browser. And what we actually want to assign these guys is in the equipment settings. What is it? Let me check. Yeah, here, schematic settings, own equipment schematics. So we actually have the equip and unequip. So let's do equip and unequip in this section here, not the level. So let's go back and remove the schematics and also own equip schematic unchecked for the level settings. Okay, once again, this is the right place to do it. I believe it's in the content information, no, item settings. Yes, in the item settings, not the level settings. Okay, item settings, schematic settings, equip, unequip, and we assign here our schematics. So let's save these changes, and now we can close the Mechanism Editor and we're good to test. Okay, now if we click play, let's move over here. Let's click the E key to equip the helmet. Let's press the P key to save the game. Move over here. Let's press the U key to unequip the helmet. And then let's press the load key to load the autosave game. And nothing happens. And you can see also that our debug logs were not printed. So why is that? The reason for that is because we are using the autosave nodes from the schematic color. autosave schematic. So we are actually saving the autosave, not the actual save game. And the method we are registering to in the events in the scripts. So let's go back to the scripts again. Open the script in Visual Studio, and what we want to do here is add a couple of entries to select in the inspector which key we want to assign again. So let's just do a serialize field, private key code, and let's call this one save key code, and another one serialize field, private key code, load key code. Yeah, why not? And of course in the update method we want to listen for these inputs. So input get key down, and the key down we are listening here in this case is the save key code. If it's press, then we call the game is love machinum, not this one, but Mackie save game, and then we call the save method, and it's going to ask the index of the slot. Remember, we saw in the editor we have currently 3 slots to choose from, so let's just pass 0 here, so it will be the first slot. And we can at this point copy this section here, and here will be the load key code, and in this case we pass the Mackie save game, and then we call the load method passing the slot 0. That's it. So let's go back to Unity, let it compile. Let's select the prefab, open the prefab. At this point we no longer need this autosave and autoload schematic colors, so let's remove these guys from here. Remove component and remove component. Now we can add the save load game test and assign the same keys. So P to save, the P key to save the game, and the L key to load the game. Alright, let's save the prefab and let's go back to editor, Unity editor, and click on play. So once again, let's move over here, equip the helmet, press the P key, move over here, remove the helmet and press the L key. And it didn't work either, no events called as well. So let's see what's going on here. Okay guys, so the mistake I made is that in our schematic caller we were actually calling the equip helmet and unequip helmet schematic, and this one what are doing is just making the game object visible. It's not actually assigning the helmet to our character inventory. So in order to properly test the save and load game, we need to add the helmet to the character or the combatant inventory. So let's add a new debug type of schematic or test schematic. So let's double click this one just to open the editor, and new schematic. Yes, we can close this one, and in the settings we can leave everything as it is, but we want to add a new actor, and the actor is going to be the machine object or the game object running this machine. We don't want to use the scene object for this one. And after that we can, for example, do a debug log from the Unity console node here. So let's do debug, and we are going to assign this one to the E key again. So let's see, E key pressed. Afterwards we can call the add inventory node, add to inventory. So we want to add, we don't need to show notification nor show console because we don't have any UI set for this yet. And a new item has been added for us, so we can check the item type is going to be equipment, and the equipment is going to be the helmet A. So we want, we can leave the level 1. We want one helmet, in this case 100% of probability to get it or to add it to the inventory. The next step, we could just call the change equipment to actually equip the helmet, but we can also validate that we actually have this item in the inventory. So there is another node called has in inventory, sorry. So we can link it up, and in the success, of course, in this has in inventory, we need to check for the item again. So once again, this is going to be an equipment type and the helmet. So we don't care about this one. And in the success branch, then we can call the change equipment node. And we want to change the equipment in the actor that is running this machine object, and we want to equip in the helmet slot this equipment, the helmet A. Okay, so let's save this schematic. I will save it again in the equipment schematic, and let's call this one equipment test schematic. Similarly, we want now to add a test for Unequip this equipment in this case. So let's create a new schematic, and let's add the machine object as an actor, and afterwards we can call again the change equipment and of course going to be from the actor running the machine object. The equipment slot again will be the helmet, and the equipment we want to remove is the helmet. And there we have two interesting checks that we need to check out. So in this case we want to keep on equipment and we want to unequip. So unequip the equipment that we had in the helmet slot and keep unequipped equipment in the inventory. Sorry for the rambling here. Okay, so that will be what we want. Let's save this schematic and let's call this one on equip test schematic. Okay, so basically when we unequip whatever equipment we have in the helmet slot will trigger, in this case, if we go back to the inventory, equipment, helmet, item settings, it will trigger the unequip helmet schematic that will hide the game object. Alright, so let's save everything just in case. Now we need to go back to the player prefab and assign the correct schematics here. So let's do the equipment test for the E key and the on equipment test for the U key. Let's save the prefab settings and let's give it a try. Okay, now let's give it a try. So click play. Press the E key to equip the helmet. Let's move over here and let's press the P key to save the game. Let's move over here and press the U key to unequip, and let's press now the L key to load the save game, and now we have the helmet. What I'm not seeing though is the event that we registered to, which is the game load event. Seems it's not been triggered. So let's do another test here. So currently we are working on the same scene, but let's move to the HUD, the hub scene that we made before. So I have the helmet equipped, so let's transition to another scene. Let the shaders compile. I should have tested this beforehand, but yes, we do have the, after the whole frame drops, we still have the helmet even by changing scenes, so that's a good. That's a good thing. Okay, so let me stop play mode and let's go back to the sandboxes, because we don't have a way to return from the previous one. And at this point we have a working save system for the helmet, at least for the helmet in this case, because it's the only equipment that we have configured in the game just so far. But it will work, the same logic that we added in the script will work for any other equipments that has the same issue, as per the modular character, I mean. Okay, so let's close this video for today, and next video we are going to work on the locomotions or the animation sets for the weapons, as I mentioned before. So thank you for watching, and if you like the content, please like and subscribe, and see you on the next one.